After the September 18th incident, the remote Jiayuguan began sensing the gathering storm clouds over its northwestern skies. Following the tide of Western explorers, a new wave of visitors arrived. They were all Chinese. Among them were journalists and statesmen. In these most uncertain times, these people, whose fates were closely tied to China's reality and future, chose without prior agreement to head northwest. The fortress standing firm in the Gobi became a beacon in the darkness, clearing the doubts in their hearts and illuminating the dawn of a new age. Winter was always Jiayuguan's quietest season. Snow, as ever, lay thick across the endless Gobi beyond the gate. In 1936, shortly after the Spring Festival, the desert's deep silence was suddenly broken by the blare of a car horn. Trundling arduously on the frozen terrain, the vehicle carried a 26-year-old Chinese man, a special correspondent at Ta Kung Pao, Fun Chongjiang.
To the west of the Gobi, nestled between two mountains, towered the Grand Gatehouse. The low-slung long wall snaked like a serpent from the distant northern peaks, snaking through the gate and up the southern slopes. That gatehouse was Jiayuguan.
Yet in this brutal winter, where 3/10 of the road was sheeted in ice, making travel treacherous, why would he disregard his health and life and venture into this frozen, isolated world? Fun Chongjiang, a descendant of Fun Zhongyan, a renowned northern song scholar, devoted his lifetime to practicing his ancestors' adage: be the first to bear hardship, the last to enjoy comfort. In 1927, amid the fervor of the National Revolution, he joined the National Revolutionary Army and took part in the Nanchang Uprising, led by the Communist Party of China. He was just 18 years old by then, After the September 18th incident, he studied philosophy at Peking University, only to realize that war-torn North China could no longer make room for study. Defiantly leaving school, he chose to become an independent journalist. He turned to the power of thought, hoping ideas, not arms, might help save China from invasion. The towering gatehouse of Jiayuguan rose before him. This was Fan Changjiang's first impression.
Jiayuguan has a small town, but years of warfare have left it in ruins. Outside there are some 50 or 60 households. The houses are low and crumbling. The people without wealth and vitality. The western gate still stands, though the once magnificent tower has been stripped bare by winds. Only a few pillars remain, struggling to prop up this relic of history.
Majestic from afar, yet worn and crumbling up close. It filled him with quiet disappointment. Still, he carefully walked the fortress inside and out, as if searching for something. From Sichuan to the northwest, from summer to winter, he carried with him a question, and hoped to find the answer. During this journey, that very question was almost weighing heavily on every Chinese soul during those turbulent years. As the Chinese nation faced an unprecedented crisis, where did its future lie? After the September 18th incident, Japan seized Manchuria. Rather than resist Japan, Chiang Kai-shek turned his forces inward to suppress the Chinese workers' and peasants' Red Army, forcing them into the grueling long march that shocked the world. In July 1935, as a 25-year-old reporter from Ta Kung Pao, Fan Changjiang stepped out of his study. He would seek China's path through first-hand exploration. Like millions of his compatriots, he turned his gaze to the northwest.
This journey has two aims. First, to study China's direction after the Red Army marched northward. Second, to uncover the history and reality of the northwest regions, the soon-to-be stronghold of the War of Resistance.
From Sichuan, he crossed snow peaks into Shanxi and Gansu, from the Qilian Mountains' southern slopes to the Heshi Corridor on the northern slopes. Along the journey, this millennia-old land, once a hub of prosperity, still boasted breathtaking landscapes and fertile soil. Yet its people bore the scars of despair.
January 10th, arriving in Zhangye. At first, I was excited about its wild beauty and grand walls. It made me believe that Golden Zhangye lived up to its name. But within days, that naive delight withered into bitter disillusionment. Nine in 10 Han Chinese were frail, clad in tatters. Their gaunt and yellow faces spoke of opium's curse. Countless homeless children wandered, their clothes hanging in tatters.
And so he pressed on westward to Jiayuguan and stopped at its door opening. The walls were covered with all kinds of verses, left by travelers across centuries. He read every verse with care. But as the fortress had done, these verses of the past only deepened his disillusionment.
Few are remarkable. Most mourn the hardships of the frontier. Not one line stirred the soul.
Then he remembered Lindesay, the anti-opium hero exiled to the northwest, who once stood here and wrote, "Who claims the Shaohan regions are impregnable? It's but a clod of earth looked back." Since Lin's era when Western cannons first battered China's gates, nearly a century had passed. Yet the nation's crisis remained unresolved. Japan's encroachment now laid bare its hunger to devour China. To take up arms and defend the country would soon become every Chinese soul's choice. Fun Changjiang yearned to rekindle the unyielding spirit of sacrifice of Lindesay in Chinese people to resist invasion. This was the spirit and power Jiayuguan, as the first pass under heaven, ought to summon in people's hearts.
They only wanted to find better lives instead of homecoming. No desert hardship could break their will.
After the exploration ended, Ta Kung Pao in Tianjin gathered Fun Changjiang's dispatches, written over his 10-month journey, and bound them under the title, China's Northwest Corner. In barely over 10 months, the book saw 9 reprints. A feat unmatched in Chinese publishing. Yet even as it swept the nation, the author had packed up and set forth on another journey. In the summer of 1936, Fun trekked once more into the northwest. This time, his aim was a spot less than 500 kilometers west of Jiayuguan, Egina Banner. Unlike his prior journey, this was a lone thrust into peril. Gazing westward from Shanhaiguan along the Great Wall, a shadow crept over Suiyuan. Then beyond it to Alxa in the west, and further into Egina and western Inner Mongolia. Japanese spies had slithered in, coaxing pro-Tokyo Mongol nobles, building airstrips and strongholds at Egina and Bailingyao. Chinese people noticed their moves. But their next move, and what exactly they were plotting, remained unclear for the time being. Amid the gathering storm over Inner Mongolia, Fun Changjiang's thoughts drifted to Jiayuguan, and to a question recently posed by a longtime foreign resident of China. This journalist held an intense interest in the Great Wall, and raised the question with the same focus. The Great Wall today holds no real defensive power anymore. Yet a nation must have its borders, must have its line of defense. I wonder where China's future Great Wall will rise. In Egina Banner, Fun Changjiang encountered Wang Degun, a lone special envoy of the national government, who revealed Japan's covert maneuvers in the region. From what he heard, he discerned that Japan's design was to forge a northern barricade and strangle China's lifelines. Tokyo's strategists believed China couldn't count on aid by sea during wartime. But by land, There was a chance it might turn to the Soviets. So they moved quickly, to seal China off before that could happen. There was a crucial route in their blockade plan.
Your neighbors have long been poisoning Mongol minds. If the Mongol tribes rose in revolt, surging up the Ruashui River to strike at Jiayuguan and Jiayuguan, there'd be no fortress to stop them. And once those gates fell, the roads linking Suiyuan and Gansu to Xinjiang would be completely cut off. Japan's scheme to cut China from Soviet aid by a Manchuria to Inner Mongolia wall would then be complete. Your majestic northwest land may soon be involved in turbulence.
With danger thickening, it became an urgent priority for Fun Changjiang to flee Egina and warn the nation of the brewing storm in western Mongolia. He raced away from Egina, night and day. According to the information he brought back, the national government began clearing Japanese strongholds. On a moonless night, Wang Dagun, referred to as modern-day Bun Chao by Fun, slithered into a Japanese arsenal and turned their ammunition into a big fireball. Suiyuan's first counterblow had landed. The Inner Mongolian steppe fell silent once more. Fun Changjiang's mind returned to the foreign journalist's question and the answer they had found together. Wave after towering wave crashed against the rocky islet where they sat, while from a nearby boat rose young voices in song. The song fused with the roaring tide, making a thunderous chorus. The old journalist asked excitedly, "Is this the roar of China's youth?" "Yes." Fun Changjiang replied simply. With faith in his nation's future, Fun Changjiang continued his path of exploration. On February 9, 1937, with Zhou Enlai's help, Fun Changjiang reached Yan'an and became the first nationalist region Chinese reporter to formally document Yan'an. A decade of searching for China's salvation had finally led him here. The revolutionary fervor moved him deeply. At this place, he saw the nation's future and hope. Months later, the July 7th incident marked the start of China's full-scale resistance. The fractured China finally united against the invader. However, from the July 7th incident to Wuhan's fall, in just 15 months, the Kuomintang center-stage battles against Japan, save for a few campaigns or skirmishes, all ended in defeat or retreat. North, East, Central, and South China Over 1 million square kilometers of land were lost. One key reason for the collapse was the vast disparity in military strength, especially firepower, between China and Japan. After the Battle of Shanghai erupted, the national government threw in most elite ground forces and nearly all air and naval forces. The battle raged for 3 months. Though it shattered Japan's delusion of conquering China in 3 months, China suffered severe losses. China's navy was virtually wiped out, and its air force was reduced to 14 planes. Its weak military industry could no longer meet wartime needs. The national government turned to the Soviet Union, the US, Britain, and France, hoping for arms and equipment. But the US, Britain, and France ignored the appeal. Only the Soviet Union offered firm and immediate aid. However, Soviet aid to China relied entirely on a stable, efficient route before it arrived in China. But after Japan captured the coastal areas, China's sea transportation was immediately shut down. Now, the overland route they had coveted for a long time became the crucial point of the war. It stretched from Soviet soil, Hualien through Xinjiang past Jiayuguan to Lanzhou and Xi'an. Under a mutual agreement, China built 2,700 kilometers of the road from Lanzhou to Khorgos, and the Soviets laid tracks from Khorgos to Turkestan. Since Soviet aid had been on its way, the national government raced to fortify the road from Gansu to Xinjiang. Lanzhou to Jiayuguan was passable with few issues. The real challenge lay in the stretch of the Gobi Desert between Jiayuguan and Xinxia. Especially between Jiayuguan and Yumentown, floodwaters ran wild across uneven sands. Yet surveys proved the Gobi was no quicksand. Trucks drove unimpeded. In October 1937, beneath Jiayuguan's time-worn towers, Soviet trucks rolled in with strategic materials. The first Soviet aid shipment crossing into China brought over 100 planes, tanks by the dozens, flak and anti-tank cannons. By then, China's own planes had been nearly wiped out. The aid came like embers in a snowstorm, lifting Chinese troops' broken spirits. According to records, from 1937 to 1941, the Soviets' 1,235 warplanes, 1,600 artillery pieces with varied calibers, nearly 2,000 trucks, and over 60,000 rifles with 100 million rounds of ammunition traveled this lifeline artery, past Jiayuguan to reach Lanzhou. From where it spread across China's battlefronts. As Claire Chenault noted, this route delivered far more wartime supplies than the famed Yunnan-Burma highway ever could. Beyond the land corridor, China and the USSR soon carved a military aerial lifeline in the northwest and built near Jiayuguan a military airfield. Lots of Soviet fighters took off and landed here, with dozens to over 100 sorties a day. During the Lanzhou-Jiayuguan air battles, China's pilots fought bravely. Most of them transited or took off from this airfield. In regard to this land-air transportation corridor, official descriptions read, "The longest, most enduring, and most secure international supply route in China. A lifeline for the Chinese nation's survival. Only because of this artery could China trade space for time, waging a war of attrition. From the September 18th incident to the July 7th incident, and to the end of 1941, underdeveloped China fought alone for 10 years. When the war evolved to full scale, Japan's steel output was 5.8 million tons, while China had merely 40,000 tons. It was a brutal clash of a feudal plowshare against industrial might. For quite a long time, aside from the Soviets' military aid, the world employed a policy of appeasement. Until December 7, 1941, the Pearl Harbor incident prompted the United States to declare war on Japan. On New Year's Day, 1942, led by China, the US, the UK, and the USSR, 26 countries inked in Washington Declaration by United Nations. The anti-fascist alliance came into being. Soon after, with the Battle of Wuhan's end, the war entered a grinding stalemate. Despite the difficult situation, victory's first light began piercing the gloom. In the northwest, the lifeline corridor and the backstage stronghold became the backbone of China's continued resistance. Its vast lands and rich resources turned into the pivot from China's endurance to triumph. Amid this shift, as the root of Chinese civilization and the foundation of national revival, the Northwest welcomed zealous development. Jiayuguan also welcomed new eyes. In July 1942, the scorching Heshi Corridor, under the eternal gaze of the Chilean glaciers, burned bright and stark. Chiang Kai-shek's eldest son, Chiang Ching-kuo, set foot here for the first time. He was sent to scout the land for his father's later tour. From Xi'an, rolling west on the Shilin Highway, Chiang Ching-kuo grew exhilarated. But impoverished local people and dilapidated towns were a sobering blow. The decline was a truth he had to face.
There is a saying in the Northwest, golden Zhangye, silver Wu-wei, honoring Zhangye's wealth. But today's Zhangye does not deserve the praise anymore.
Through the Heshi Corridor, after surveying Wu-wei, Zhangye, and Jiuquan, he pressed onward to Anxi.
Along the way lies a place of renown, Jiayuguan, the westernmost fortress of the Great Wall. Beyond its gates, a vast plain stretches into the distance. That is the true heart of the Northwest. So, young men of purpose, should return to our ancient homeland. Young men of purpose should go to the northwest.
In August 1942, Chiang Kai-shek's private plane touched down near Jiayuguan. The next day, with Sung Meiling at his side, he climbed and inspected its ramparts. Time had gnawed at the fortress, its earthen walls crumbling, bricks loosened, towers skeletal, ravaged by nature and humans. Chiang Kai-shek ordered the immediate restoration of the fortress at Jiayuguan. Yet local officials shuffled blame. And by the time the Chiangs fled to Taiwan, Jiayuguan still stood, waiting in vain for repair. On September 25, 1949, Jiayuguan was liberated. Soon after, the First Field Army of the People's Liberation Army, led by Peng Dehuai, marched past its gates toward Xinjiang. By 1950, the new government allocated funds to repair the crumbling Jiayuguan. At last, this land awoke to rebirth. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, in just over 5 short years, China took a major step toward modern industrialization. Yet the world was unrelenting, offering no respite for the young republic's steady growth. As the basis of modern industrial countries, steel output had decisive significance. In the spring of 1955, at Beijing's Supreme State Conference, Mao Zedong pointed out, "Steel remains our priority. All 6 regions must have their steel bases. Yet the Northwest lacks one. I still lose sleep over it." A century of struggle had taught that, from the perspective of national strategy, only balanced development could shield the nation from crisis. At New China's birth, annual steel output was only 160,000 tons. A year later, it surged to 600,000 tons. By the time of the Supreme State Conference, China's annual steel output had reached 2.3 million tons, yet still lagged far behind the capitalist giants. Even more critically, its distribution was lopsided. The vast Northwest, a third of China's land, owned not a single major steelworks. This was Mao Zedong's dread. To build a large steel mill, first came the hunt for iron-rich earth. Geologists began to scour the Chilean mountains. In 1955, they made a great breakthrough. Not far from Jiayuguan, they found the abundant iron ore of Jingtia Mountain, which led to the founding of the Jiuquan Iron and Steel Plant. It was China's 4th planned base, after Anshan, Wuhan, and Baotou iron and steel industrial bases. The ancient land turned a new page at last. The dream of revival, carried through generations, lived on in the hearts of many. The call to develop the Northwest echoed across New China. On this barren stretch of the Gobi where a ruined fortress and a few scattered homes stood, waves of migrants arrived from every corner of the country. In 1965, the city named after this ancient fortress rose from the desert. From the following year, tens of thousands of builders were incorporated into the People's Liberation Army's 02 Corps of Capital Construction Engineer. From mines to factories, these young men, summoned by idealism, endured harsh winds, slept in underground shelters, and began a grueling journey of nation building.
You'll get the sound of the trains hooting. It seems to echo here.
William Lindesay was born in Wallasey, a small town in Liverpool, England. When he was in primary school, he and his brother often raced along Hadrian's Wall. The wall was built in the 2nd century, stretching 117 kilometers. It is the longest wall in the ancient Roman world. Lindesay kept a world atlas by his bedside. Whenever he turned it to China, he would enthusiastically picture that serpentine structure, winding from east to west. To pay a personal visit to, and walk the length of the Great Wall, became his dream, clinging to his mind. In 1986, the 29-year-old Lindesay finally came to China and saw the Great Wall. He determined to trek its full span, from the west end. Starting at Jiayuguan, he tracked the wall, to find the west end of it. Even today, he recalls the thrill of reaching the first pier of Great Wall.
In the last few tens of meters, I realized I was nearing some kind of precipice. And the hissing got louder, and I could feel my heart beating in my chest. And at that moment I was convinced, this is the place I begin my journey.
From April 1987. With nothing but a sparse backpack, Lindesay set out from Jiayuguan, embarking on his solitary trek along the Great Wall. After over 100 days and nights, and 5,000 kilometers of relentless footsteps, he finally arrived at the east end of the Great Wall, the old Dragon's Head of Shanhaiguan. His childhood dream was fulfilled. Lindesay returned to England and wrote his experience in Alone on the Great Wall. The book ignited fascination across Britain overnight. For years, he believed he was the first Westerner to conquer the Great Wall's entire length. Until one day, when an American letter arrived.
I've just been reading your book, Alone on the Great Wall, with much interest and admiration. Perhaps it is too late for it to be of use. I have in my possession The Great Wall of China by an American, William Edgar Giles, published in 1909. It is an impressive account, about 340 pages long, with more than 100 photographic illustrations.
William was told by this letter that a book published in 1909 had already traced the same adventure of trekking across the Great Wall. The author of this century-old book was an American. His name was William likewise. As the first Westerner known to walk the Great Wall's entire length, American geographer William Giles published in 1909 the first dedicated book on China's Great Wall in the West. On the wall of his house in America, a weathered rubbing of a stela still hangs, a silent testament to his feat. It was taken from the Great Wall's westernmost fortress, greatest pass under heaven, Jiayuguan.
Let's look at the similarities. Name is William. Fascination for the Great Wall. It has occurred to me, am I a reincarnation of William Giles? But I think we're different people. We're different people that lived at different times, that had the same love. On the eve of the millennium, just before midnight, we hiked up to the wall. I could see the ridgeline crowned by the wall with the towers, and the towers looked like bright eyes looking down on me approaching. And I thought to myself, wow, these towers have seen the arrival of 1600, 1700, 1800, 1900. What are they going to see in the next 100 years? And it's at that moment I thought that William Giles' photography and my updating of his photographs could be the perfect formula for influencing a better future for the wall.
Inspired, William Lindesay started his mission to re-photograph the wall. He retraced every step where Giles once stood, capturing the same vistas through a new era's lens. These images, separated by 100 years, reveal with startling clarity this building's past. And history has proven Giles' prophecy from a century past.
They are awakening. China is changing. It is expectable that China's modernization will be distinct from Japan's. This empire will place its mighty weight upon the scales of peace. Who built the Great Wall believed laying stones was better than throwing them.
Peace, dialogue, connection. Ancient China now strides into the future, where treaty ports and customs stood. New gateways now open to Central and West Asia, and beyond. Freight trains bound for Europe race past these very walls. Seasons turn, and the sun rises and sets. Another century unfolds. Yet through time's relentless tide, Jiayuguan stands unshaken, its time-worn walls still standing watch over the northwest, as if untouched by years. Through the gate tower's passage, Listen closely. The rugged wind still whispers of those who came before, and the legends they left behind. One generation fades, another comes of age. The chronicle of time turns its page. Beneath the ancient building, new stories and fresh dreams begin their journey.